Hey, howdy, hey, how is everybody doing? And welcome back to Disney Daily. So in today's video, I am basically theorizing how exactly Pixar's newest film, Lightyear, fits into the glorious Pixar theory. Now, before I go ahead and get into it, I want to make sure I preface this by saying that this is my theory. I want to go ahead and stress and reiterate, it's my theory, it is not a fact, I'm just throwing this out there for fun. And I also want to go ahead and say that I am currently making this theory video before the movie Lightyear actually comes out. So the whole goal of this is once I go see Lightyear tomorrow, I'm going to come back to this video and I'm going to see if my theory still stands or if it's a complete fail. And if it is a complete fail, then I need to go back to the drawing board and make a completely new video about how exactly Lightyear will fit the Pixar theory. For real this time. Now, before I move on to the meat of this video, I want to also mention a couple of videos that I have made that I think you guys would like, especially if you're a Buzz Lightyear fan. The first video is all about how exactly Buzz Lightyear was made, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that link right at the top. It is called The Evolution of Buzz Lightyear, and that was a really fun video to make because I did a lot of research by watching a short documentary that you can watch on Disney Plus now called Beyond Infinity. It is really, really neat, and it takes a deep dive into our beloved character Buzz Lightyear and essentially how we got him. And the second video, I'm gonna leave another link right up there, is called Was Buzz Lightyear Based on a Real Life Person? Now, on that one, it's kind of a complicated answer, but it was really fun video to make, and I think all of you that are Buzz Lightyear fans would really enjoy it. So check it out either before, after, or even during this video, if you can multitask like that. Now, I will also say that the Pixar theory is either something you love or you hate. There are a lot of people out there that really, really hate the Pixar theory and think it's dumb and think that basically it's failed time and time and time again, and there is no giant connection between all of these movies. And then there's people like myself who really, really do enjoy the theory and try to make it work. With every movie that comes out, we try and use that movie and put it into the timeline as best as we can. Okay, so now getting into the Pixar theory. Let's go ahead and start first with what is the Pixar theory? And I know a lot of you out there are probably yawning and going, wait, we already know what the Pixar theory is. Can we just, fast forward? And if you want, you're more than welcome to go ahead and fast forward. But for those of you who don't know what the Pixar theory is, or maybe you just need a little refresher, here it is. Now, the Pixar theory was a theory that was proposed by a man named Jon Negroni. And Jon Negroni, I gotta give you 2 thumbs up on this one because this is one of my favorite theories to play with. Now, the Pixar theory suggests that all of the Pixar films that we know of, including the sequels, all happen in the same universe. They are a part of the same universe, and they all exist on one gigantic timeline. So some of them overlap and some of them don't. For example, The Good Dinosaur is at the very, very beginning of the timeline, and Monsters, Inc. is at the very, very end of the timeline. So those two don't overlap. Or I guess they do technically overlap because in the Pixar theory, Boo is actually the witch from Brave, and she does some time traveling. Okay, but that's for another time. That's a video for another time. But essentially, you guys understand the Pixar theory now. It is basically all of the films exist in the same universe on a gigantic timeline. So here's where the fun comes in. So anytime a new Pixar film comes out, all the creators who love Pixar basically try to figure out how exactly does this movie fit into the timeline. And sometimes it's a really easy fit. Like Soul, for instance. I felt like that was a really, really easy movie to fit into the timeline and into the world. But then there's movies that are a little bit harder to fit into the timeline. For example, Onward. I felt like that was really, really hard to try and fit into the timeline. And I eventually kind of went with different dimensions in order to answer the question how it fits in the Pixar theory. Okay, so let's answer the question. Where exactly does Lightyear fit into the Pixar timeline? Well, the answer is quite simple. Lightyear is actually happening around the same time, or maybe even a year before, the events in Toy Story. And according to the Pixar theory, Toy Story is happening in the late 90s. So that is when this Lightyear movie is coming out. You see, Lightyear, the movie we are all going to see in the theater, is what the Pixar team imagined would have been the movie that Andy would have seen in the theaters. So essentially, we are watching Andy's movie, or what Andy grew up on. And since this was the movie that Andy grew up watching, This is the movie that made him want a Buzz Lightyear toy. Now, to give a real life example, this is basically the equivalent of us going to see a Batman or a Superman or a Wonder Woman movie. Obviously, we go in, we watch this amazing superhero movie, and then we walk out wanting a bunch of merchandise. That is essentially what the Lightyear movie did to Andy. Now, when I tell you guys that I was super confused by all of this, I was completely confused. Because essentially this movie that we're getting was a movie that was played in the Toy Story universe and was played in front of Andy. That's the movie that we're getting to see when it comes out. And if you don't believe me, well, this was all supported by the documentary that I mentioned called Beyond Infinity. The Pixar team verified that when they sat down and asked themselves the question, who was Buzz Lightyear? They knew they had to make a film about a really cool, out there, over the top superhero character, and that was Buzz Lightyear. So I hope I've answered how and why and where Lightyear fits into the Pixar theory, and of course, again, reiterating once again that this is my own theory, but I think this has honestly been the easiest movie to fit into this theory that we've had in a really, really long time. Now we know the movie that Buzz Lightyear, the toy, was inspired after. I think it's a really cool full circle moment, and I'm so excited that this movie is going to be coming out. But I hope you enjoyed this Pixar theory video, and please leave down in the comments what you're looking forward to most about this movie. One last thing before I go, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It's a really cool channel with an amazing community. As always, thanks for being my guest here at Disney Daily. I'll catch you all in the next one.